They hid a prenup I wasn't meant to see. They crossed out my name on the rehearsal list. They never imagined the $9 million trust with my signature. What would you do? Tonight I'll prove it 3 times, an email, a key, and a deed.
48 hours before the wedding, the Rosemont Hotel lobby smelled like citrus and expensive discretion. My future mother-in-law, Eleanor, floated toward me in pearls and a smile that had been rehearsed. She touched my elbow as if it were a doorknob she owned. "You look lovely," she said. "Let's pop upstairs for a teeny piece of paperwork. Tradition." I knew what tradition meant when people like Eleanor said it. It meant a signature that served only one side. It meant my name smaller than theirs. I followed her to a private lounge where a leather folder waited on a glass table. The windows showed a city pretending to be harmless. She flipped the folder open to a thick stack, legal font, margins that smelled like strategy. "Our family lawyer will join us in a moment," she said lightly. "We kept the prenup out of sight so you wouldn't stress during planning." I didn't sit. I watched dust move in the light. I counted the pages, the tabs, the places where a pen would be asked to speak,
K for me, and would not be allowed to ask questions back. "Would you sign now or ask for the original?" She poured sparkling water as if hydration were a favor. "You must be exhausted after the rehearsal," she said. "I'm awake," I answered, "very awake." "I promise it's standard," she sang, the way people sing in rooms they think they own. "Standard for whom?" I asked. She smiled wider, puzzled that I had not placed my consent on the table beside the coaster. I could hear the elevator doors opening and closing outside. I could hear my own heartbeat counting down to the moment I would stop pretending to be grateful for being managed. I wasn't here to sign. I was here to count. I grew up above my aunt's bakery, where receipts were honest and ovens kept time better than men in suits. I like doors that open when they should, invoices that match the work, and light bulbs that don't lie. My job is operations for small properties that would rather breathe than pose. Places where the lobby plants look watered because someone remembered to listen to them. Adrian says I make chaos behave. On a first pass, he's charming. 2 minutes of warmth. 10 years of family name. When we announced the engagement, Eleanor measured me with the same care she used on pearls. Her brother, Victor, talked the way a storm does when it thinks the roof will hold, no matter what it says. Adrian's cousin Lily laughed too loudly whenever the check arrived, as if the bill were a game that would ask for autographs. At dinners, they called me practical, the way people compliment an appliance. I didn't mind being useful. I minded being a prop. We ate at restaurants where chairs weighed more than portions, where waiters' names were learned long enough to be forgotten when the table decided to move on to another story about someone else's yacht. They asked questions that lived nowhere near love. "What's in your name? Any legacy assets? Are you thinking of marital consolidation?" It was the kind of curiosity that looks like an audit when you turn on the light. I smiled. I answered very little. I kept my hands on my napkin and my mind on an index card I carried in my wallet. Ask for the original. The first time I wrote that, I was 18. A landlord tried to raise my aunt's rent with a corrected lease. We asked for the original and the amendments. The ink didn't match. Neither did the dates. The story ended there. Numbers don't like the wrong pen. Adrian loved that I loved the right pen. He told me he respected competence. I believed him. I still do, most days. He simply didn't know how to say no to rooms that had trained him to treat consent like a free appetizer, something that it appeared whether he asked for it or not. If your name gets crossed out, do you leave or walk back in with a list of names they cannot erase? I practiced the question as if it were a sentence I would need to say while standing. I didn't know then how quickly I would need it. I let them wonder. I kept the card. At the rehearsal dinner, the hostess scanned the list and frowned. "I'm so sorry. Your name isn't on here." I texted Adrian. Delivered. No reply. The air in the lobby felt staged. I could hear laughter from the private dining room, the kind that believes it invented happiness. Eleanor arrived with a sigh that sounded like philanthropy. "It's just logistics," she said. "Family zones are complicated. We want the best." "The best for whom?" I asked. "For everyone," she said. "Of course." I asked the hostess to see the paper. The line through my name was a clean, thick stroke. Not a mistake. A decision. A neat incision made by someone who had practiced the angle. I stepped away from the stand, breathed, and did the thing my aunt taught me. Find the person who actually knows how things work. The front desk supervisor leaned in. "We had last-minute changes," she whispered. "We were told to filter by their family name only. I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," I said. "Thank you for telling me." And I didn't raise my voice. I forwarded myself the coordinator's message I had spotted on the screen, subject line, "Rehearsal Access." I forwarded the rehearsal access email to myself, time-stamped, with the instruction, "Non-family guests will be escorted out if necessary." Punchline, signatures don't flinch, and neither do time-stamped emails. I walked outside and let the air reshape me. I have learned that when a room refuses to remember your name, the street will lend you one for a minute. My phone buzzed. "Adrian, where are you?" I wrote back, "Outside, reading." He didn't answer. "Would you sign a prenup from people who just crossed out your name?" Eleanor found me under the awning. "There you are," she said. "I was worried." "You were rehearsing," I said. "So was I." She wasn't finished. Neither was I. Back in the lounge, their family attorney, Howard, arrived with a pen already uncapped. He smelled like cedar and winning. He shook my hand as if the handshake were a contract, and then sat with the self-possession of a person who bills by the minute and sells hours like polished stones. "This protects everyone," he said. As if protection were a blanket he was about to sell me. I did what I always do when my heart starts sprinting. I read. The prenup carved me away from Adrian's holdings, present and future. It also reached into mine, with a clause labeled, "After acquired community." They planned to share anything I built after the wedding, while quarantining everything of theirs behind a wall of ancestors. I traced the operative verbs with my fingertip. It's amazing how much harm can be done by a verb dressed as a gentleman. Why was this hidden until 48 hours before the wedding? I asked. Eleanor blinked pleasantly. Because brides shouldn't worry. Then why are you worried? I asked, and let the question sit where her smile lived. Howard coughed. These are standard provisions. Standard for your clients, I said, not for me. Surely you don't object to clarity. I adore clarity, I said. So let's be clear. Where is the original, not the copy, the signed storage log and the vault card? Their faces change the way chandeliers change when the power flickers. Same shape, different truth. Eleanor recovered first. If it would ease your mind, she said, we can visit the vault and view the original. Now? I asked. Now, she said, a little too brightly. I smiled. I would always rather read in the light. If you live long enough around properties, you learn a few things about safes, vaults, and the people who use both. Things that matter are rarely in one place. They live in triangulation. A document, a key, a ledger. People can lie to your face, but paper gets tired of pretending. We walked to the Rosemont's private bank branch. The manager had known my aunt for years and greeted me by name. "Box 311, he asked. "We'll need the dual keys." Eleanor produced a brass key from her purse. The manager took a second from a panel behind his desk and led us into a vault that breathed very softly. I watched Eleanor's mouth settle into a confident line, a woman sure she was escorting a problem back into its lock. Inside box 311, the prenup sat with a paperclip holding a yellow sticky note. Present, 48 hours before ceremony. Beneath it, an addendum I hadn't seen in the copy. A clause attempting to include any trust distribution I received during the marriage, regardless of source. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice level. "You're trying to lasso money that was never yours." "Don't be dramatic," Eleanor replied. "It's normal." "It's specific," I said, "to a thing you think exists." I asked to see the ledger. The manager slid over a bound book with the calm of someone who respects objects more than opinions. Lines of time and ink, tidy as morning. The vault access log for box 311 showed 3 entries that morning: Eleanor, Howard, and Lily. I requested a certified copy. Howard cleared his throat. "Quite unnecessary." "On the contrary," I said, "necessary is the whole point." I did not mention the leather folder I carried, or the letter sleeping inside it, or the number that would not flinch if asked to appear in daylight. I simply thanked the manager, thanked even the air for being so beautifully indifferent to wealth, and walked back out into the hotel, where rooms still had to earn their light. "You hid a prenup. I have a trust you haven't seen." I didn't grow up rich, but I did grow up useful. Years ago, I took over night shifts at a fading seaside inn whose boiler coughed like a smoker and whose light bulbs lied every third evening. The owner was kind in the way oceans are, powerful, patient, and liable to drown you if you forget your footing. I stayed through one winter, then another. I kept logs, replaced bulbs, learned the boiler's moods, mapped the rooms that breathed easiest when you cracked the window a quarter inch. We survived a storm that rearranged the shoreline like furniture. When the owner died, she left a letter, addressed in handwriting that treated my name as a thing that could be held without denting it. I refused twice, and then accepted. Because generosity is also a job if you do it right. A controlling interest, placed into a conservative trust with guardrails that did not flatter me. The trustee would release distributions only for capital improvements, staff scholarships, and emergencies I could document. No handbags, no theater seating, no gold-plated anything. Money that wore work boots, not silk shoes. I learned something then. Money that arrives with instructions respects you. Money that arrives hungry will eat you first. Last quarter's valuation, $9 million. I never said it out loud. Numbers don't need applause. They need uses. The trust made me a kind of steward, not a princess. I prefer stewards. They sweep as they go. In my leather folder lay an executed power of direction, naming me as the trust's controlling beneficiary. Attached was a note from the trustee that read like the weather when it's honest. Distributions must follow Schedule A, staff wages, vendor fairness, emergency restorations. It wasn't just money. It was policy dressed as patience. Had they asked me directly, I would have told them the same truth I tell any room. I don't need your permission to be fair. I thought of Adrian then, not as an ornament on a cake, but as a man trying to reenact an old saint, on a stage that had been rebuilt without telling him. He was good at first passes. He was less good at saying no to people who considered no an insult. I held the folder and decided to use the trust as it was designed, not to threaten, not to show off, but to change the weather inside a building where the forecast had turned personal. If someone writes a clause to catch a ghost, do you show them the ghost or the door? By afternoon, I had an appointment with the hotel's general manager, Dana. She had the posture of a person who could carry a chandelier if you asked her nicely, then bill your insurance without apologizing. We sat in her office, a room where pens worked and plants were alive. "I'm not here to make a scene," I said. "I'm here to fix the ledger." "Show me the pages," she said. I showed her the rehearsal access email. I showed her the certified vault log for box 311. I showed her the power of direction and Schedule A. "Clear," she said. "We'll follow policy and we'll follow it publicly." "Quietly publicly," I said. "The kind where people feel the difference, not the kind where it turns into a headline." Dana smiled. "Quietly publicly is my favorite way." I left her office with 2 promises: that I would not sign anything that erased me, and that I would use what I held to lift the people the prenup forgot. Mini cliffhanger. Tomorrow we'd meet at a round table, a shape that hates corners, and I would put 3 cards down. We chose the hotel's small library for the meeting because the books made the air behave. Eleanor arrived first, floating on kindness that had been ironed. Howard came in with his pen uncacked, a man married to signatures. Adrian trailed behind, handsome and undecided, which is a kind of handsomeness people don't admit they enjoy. Howard started with phrases that have never loved a person in their lives. Reasonable expectations, market standard provisions, predictable outcomes. Eleanor padded each term with a smile. I let the words pass like a well-behaved tide. Then I placed 3 things on the table, one after another, slow as spelling. I laid down the time-stamped rehearsal email with "non-family guests will be escorted out if necessary." I laid down the certified ledger copy showing box 311, accessed by Eleanor, Howard, and Lily. I laid down the trust power of direction, my signature, the trustees, and the line every room hears if it's listening. 9 million in assets govern. D by policy, not whim. "I'm not signing your prenup," I said. "I'm proposing ours." It's shorter. Howard's pen paused in the air like a bird deciding against migration. "You've drafted one?" "Of course," I said. "You like paper." I brought paper. I read it aloud. "Each party's premarital property stays separate. No after-acquired community claim on pre-existing trusts. If either family excludes the other party from any wedding event, that family funds a staff bonus pool equal to 5% of their event spend, dispersed to hotel hourly employees on the next payroll. Any clause presented within 72 hours of the ceremony is void, unless both parties' counsel agree in writing." Adrian looked from my face to the papers as if one of us might be a mirror. "This is fair," he said, voice low. Eleanor's smile tightened. "You're being theatrical." "I'm not being theatrical," I said. "I'm being in writing." Howard cleared his throat. The bonus pool clause is unusual. So is crossing O. On it the bride's name, I said. We're keeping the ledger honest. And the trust, surely you don't intend to... I intend to follow Schedule A, I said. If money is going to speak here, it's going to say staff wages and vendor fairness. Eleanor leaned back, considering which chess piece could travel through walls. We can accept separate property, she said carefully. But the timing is yours, I said. You hid the document. I found the light. Would you walk away here, or wait for the bill to speak? Mini cliffhanger. The bill always speaks. The question is, whose name it says. That night, the rooftop restaurant performed wealth the way a stage performs thunder, convincingly, until the lights come on. We hosted both families. Adrian ordered like a man auditioning for applause. Eleanor corrected servers with a fingertip and a biography. Victor told a joke that had a private jet in it and very little mercy. Lily scrolled through her phone and laughed at nothing in particular. I ate steadily and said little. The best way to ruin a performance is not to boo it, but to watch it until it forgets it's performing. The folio arrived at the angle confident men prefer. Adrian lifted it, generous as a spotlight. 4,000 even, he announced, as if totals were trophies he had personally wrestled from the wilderness. We'll split, Victor said, grand in the way men get when they can't do math and don't want to. She's got this, Eleanor added, sliding the folder toward me with the smoothness of a threat dressed as affection. I turned the folio around so the table could see what numbers look like when they stop pretending to be compliments. The master account card glinted, and the name on it belonged to Adrian. It's your card, I said. It always is, Eleanor replied easily. You'll reimburse. Cute story for the kids I didn't raise my voice. I asked the maitre d' for my separate folio, the one I had arranged an hour earlier at the host stand, with a smile and a sentence that began with please and ended with thank you. My courses, my pairings, my signature where it belonged. I signed my check. Then I set an envelope on the table. Inside was the agreement I had read that afternoon, including a line named for nights like this. Any attempt to publicly humiliate the bride triggers the staff bonus pool at 5% of event food and beverage minimum. Howard laughed once, a lawyer's bark. You can't write policy into dinner. You already did, I said, touching the prenup copy you hid in box 311. Adrian stared at the folio as if totals had betrayed him. Eleanor's smile faltered, then steadied, then faltered again. Victor reached for a joke and came up with nothing but a napkin. Separate check, smart or petty? I let the question hang, not as a dare, but as a mirror. The maitre d' returned with my signed folio and a soft professional nod. He placed the original folio in front of Adrian and waited, the way oceans wait, unoffended by storms. We sat in a silence that finally admitted it was a silence. A city is loud until a bill arrives. Mini cliffhanger. The chandelier didn't blink, but Adrian did. The atrium holds sound the way a ledger holds numbers, not tenderly, but accurately. Adrian caught up to me at the landing. You made me look small, he said, and it was the first honest sentence he had given me all evening. No, I said. I made the bill look accurate. He looked at the marble beneath our feet, as if it might plead for him. Eleanor shouldn't have hidden it. Correct, I said. And you shouldn't have let her. He nodded once, a slow movement that looked like a yes, learning how to walk. I'll sign your version, he said. I'll fund the staff bonus myself. That's not the point, I said. The point is learning which rooms belong to kindness. If we marry, it's because both of us can stand up. We went back upstairs. Adrian asked the hostess, the maitre d', and the captain to gather the team on the side station. He apologized by name, which is the only way apologies work. He asked Dana, the GM, to add 5% of the event spend to the next payroll as a bonus. He died. Didn't perform it for the table. He performed it for the ledger. Eleanor watched from a distance, brittle at the edges, then did something useful. She thanked the dishwasher who had stayed late. Victor put away his jokes for the evening. Lily texted less. An apology is a receipt. It confirms what changed hands. Dana pulled me aside. We'll post the transparency notes tonight. Back pay corrected for departments that got squeezed during setup, vendor pricing restored, and guest list policy rewritten to say the quiet part. The bride is not removable. Make it clean, I said. It will be. By midnight, the staff had a schedule that respected their time. The vendors had emails that respected their contracts, and the lobby had a rumor it liked, that a room could be changed by someone who refused to vanish. Tomorrow, halfway down the aisle, I'll stop. Mini cliffhanger. Walk or wed. Morning arrived like a careful promise. The air held its breath without being asked. I ate toast because voices need bread. Downstairs, the staff moved like choreography that had finally been allowed to call itself dancing. Guests found their seats. The aisle looked less like a path and more like a sentence. Do you, I do, we will. Adrian waited at the end of that sentence. Not handsome in the way magazines teach, but human in the way mornings require. The officiant cleared her throat. The quartet breathed, and I began to walk. Halfway down, I stopped. It wasn't theater. It was an audit. I will keep my promises, I said, but not the ones that require me to vanish. If we marry today, it's because we both know how to stand up. Adrian's face changed into an emotion that finally fit the room. You shouldn't have had to fight, he said. I thought permission was love. I was wrong. We finished the walk together. The vows were simple, the kind you can repeat on a Tuesday without blushing. We signed the register. We did not sign anything else masquerading as tradition. Dana met me at the side door with a small stack of forms. The first distribution request under Schedule A. I authorized a scholarship fund for hourly staff, tuition, books, emergency childcare, with criteria posted before the dessert spoons were collected. We took photographs that did not pretend the hotel had built itself. The chef stood between us in one picture, holding a notepad the way a man holds a newborn. Careful, unsure, devoted. The florist's hands were stained with green and triumph. The dishwasher grinned like a person who had been seen. Eleanor stood near me in another photo, her smile complicated but real enough to use. Weeks later, the index card in my wallet has 2 lines, ask for the original and ask whether it's kind. Sometimes Adrian forgets and reaches for permission as if it were a napkin that comes with the table. Sometimes I forget and reach for a ledger when a hug would do. We are e-learning. I prefer learning to pretending. If you are listening because someone hid a document and called it tradition, here is a blueprint that bends for no one. Be kind. Be clear. Stand up. Fix the ledger. Sign only what matters. Refuse to vanish. Then go where you belong. It feels like a lobby you helped build. Honest floors, good light, and your name exactly where it should be, printed and unbroken on the right list. Epilogue, which is just a Tuesday. When the world tries to shrink you, hold your paper to the light. Let it glow where it matters. And if anyone draws a black line through your name, remember, ink crosses paper, not people.